Hi, I'm Anne-Marie from Soap Queen TV. Thanks so much for joining me this week. This week, we're going to cover embedding objects and embedding soap in melt and pour soap. Some basic rules to think about when embedding objects or soap into your melt and pour soap. 1. Keep it age appropriate. If you're making soap for babies, don't put tiny things in that they can choke on. 2. Make sure you're not putting inappropriate items like, say, razor blades into your soap that might cut or scrape. 3. When you're embedding soap in soap, make sure that the color is a non-bleeding color. What that means is that the color won't migrate to the rest of the soap. And 4, temperature is key. When you're using brambleberry.com melt and pour soap bases, you want to pour when the soap is not steaming, definitely not boiling. Usually this is around 120 to 125 degrees. If you're using another manufacturer's base, just ask your vendor what the ideal pouring for embedded objects is. And finally, don't mix brands of soap bases. This is because they evaporate off at different rates and the layers of the embedded objects eventually will pull apart. So now I'm going to show you how to do embedded objects in soap. There's a lot of options actually out there. Some of the very cute stuff that brambleberry.com carries are things like these adorable erasers. I love them. And yes, they can be used as an eraser. Today we're going to be making this bar of soap. I think it's very cute. Our little penguin, let's call her Penelope, is going to be put into this bar of soap. So the first step for making our embedded soap is that we need to melt some melt and pour soap. About 3 to 4 ounces will do. Make sure when you're melting that you do 30-second bursts because you don't want to burn your soap base. This makes your soap yellow or smell bad. So now that our soap is melted, it's time to add fragrance. But first, check that out. It's pretty clear, but it's not perfect. It's just a little bit yellow. I have a tip to share with you. You know how back in the olden days they used to blue their laundry to make their whites look really white? Well, you do that with soap too. I'm actually using Blue Mix Lab Color. And what I'm going to do is just take a drop or two and drop it in. That makes this look even more blue-based clear and not a yellow-based clear. Next, I'm going to add fragrance, and I'm using pearberry. The reason I'm using pearberry is because pearberry is water white when it comes out, meaning it's totally clear, there's no yellow, it's perfect. And pearberry is super kid-friendly. Kids love it. Mix it in. Then, go ahead and pour the clear soap into your rectangle mold. Finally, take your little Penelope penguin. Spritz her down with alcohol so she has great surface adhesion, and just put her in. We're going to have to wait a little bit, like 5 minutes or so, because this background, this blue background, is actually another layer, and we need to wait for the first layer to harden before we do this. But while that's happening, I want to talk to you about embedding soap into soap. This is a loaf mold. It holds about 2 pounds of soap. Just to make things a little bit easier, I've actually made some soapy embedding objects for you using ultramarine green chrome oxide, ultramarine blue, and mixing green chrome oxide and ultramarine blue together for a great look. The reason I chose these colors is because they're non-bleeding, meaning the colors won't migrate. Melt about 2 pounds of white melt and pour in the microwave. Remember, 30-second bursts. And now we're going to fragrance this soap. Generally, rule of thumb is 0.25 ounces per pound of soap. It's 2 pounds of soap, so we're going to use about half an ounce. And again, I'm going to go ahead and use pearberry because I love that fragrance. So now, pour the white soap into your loaf, spritz it with alcohol, take your embedding objects, spritz them with alcohol, drop them in. Do that again 3 or 4 times until the whole mold is filled up. That's going to harden for about 4 hours before we can cut it. But while that's hardening, let's go back to Penelope the penguin. Our second layer is ready to go. All I need to do is melt just about ½ an ounce. Since it's such a small amount of soap, I'm actually not going to fragrance this, but I'm definitely going to color it. I'm going to use Aqua Lab Color. Just a drop or two of diluted Aqua Lab Color, and it's a beautiful color. And then, for the final touch, I'm going to use some glitter to make the soap really pop. But just a word of warning, this isn't normal craft glitter that you normally use for rubber stamping. This is skin-safe glitter. It's very important that you only use skin-safe products in your soap. Mix that in well. Take your alcohol, spritz the first layer. Very important. Then gently pour over. Spritz to get rid of any surface bubbles, and boom, you're done. And just one more thing I want to show you before I end today. I cheated a little and I made this already ahead of time because I wanted you to see how great this looked when it came out. Let's go ahead and cut it. And look how great this looks. Isn't that amazing? And you saw how simple that was to make. Thank you so much for joining me this week on Soap Queen TV. Please join me next week as I go over a more intermediate and advanced technique on how to make awesome clamshell soaps. Until then, happy soaping.